What is going on, everybody, and welcome back into Bali Studios. Now, I'm super excited to announce this amazing project playlist here on my YouTube channel. Now, just to get into it, for some backstory, not too long ago, I really wanted to kind of chase after creating some larger scale sculptures and dioramas for my customer base. I wanted to create a line of animal dioramas that I could easily cast and resell in the future. Now, whether or not the price goes up, which it more than likely will after the original, I had posted quite a few of these as just general reference photos on Etsy. Now, of course, these are different than your run-of-the-mill items that you would sell on Etsy. These are more so like pre-orders of my original design. But of course, sometimes when people are paying such a high dollar for original sculptures, they really want to have their own input into it. And I completely respect that. Once you go into a certain level of price range for fine art, sculptures, and dioramas, people want what they want. And I completely love this. Not only does it allow me to express myself artistically in my overall design process, but just because I like something in an overall diorama or a sculpture doesn't necessarily mean the masses or the customer commissioning the piece may like that. And that's the circumstance that we run in today. I'm excited that the customer is showing so much interest in my creation of this project. And what are we going to be making, you may ask? This post is a Peregrine Falcon. So the customer had purchased this on Etsy, and they are the very first 0001 to get this. Of course, this will have a letter of authenticity along with it, just because it is going to be a large piece. A lot of these animals, I do want to make them in realistic 1:1 size. That means that they will be in their original size. The sculpture that we're going to be creating is a Peregrine Falcon. So they are ranging in different sizes, different color shades, depending on the overall ecosystem or habitat they may be in. Now, I will release some fun facts throughout this project series here and there, just kind of introducing you to Peregrine Falcons. I'm not a master on them, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to do my deep dive and look at all of the reference photos as well as just their overall traits and habitats and things that they enjoy in the wild. That's one of the funnest parts about creating something like this, is you have to do a massive amount of research, so that way you can create just a really realistic item in the final looks of the actual sculpture and diorama. So let's be said, I'm going to be doing tons of research on it. Now, just to kind of tip off the fun tips about Peregrine Falcons, did you know that they are the fastest animal in the world? Upwards of 200 miles per hour when they're diving for their prey. Ain't that something? Now, this project is going to be substantially large, and I'm kicking it off with this introduction video. This will also cascade into the very first video of the creation process. We are going to be making an overall large item here. It's going to have a large wooden structure, and then the bird is going to be perched on top of it. Let's go ahead and just talk about what the customer wanted and then what I kind of also had in mind for this project here. Let's list some things on the screen. Now, the customer had sent me some reference photos of the bird generated by AI. Now, there are some things that we liked about the image, and there's some things we did not. Now, I'm going to go ahead and post my original idea here. Now, this is something that I had in my head. I just took some reference photos, I collaged them together, and then this is what we have here. Now, as you can see, the bird is perched on top of a log formation here, and I originally intended that the log would have a top branch on top of it, sitting kind of abstractly on top of the actual rotted log. Lots of moss, lots of decay, and just overall just nasty woodland texture. And the bird will be kind of perched very symmetrical on top of that. Very tall, right? Very tall order. The customer was amazing, and we were able to coordinate through email on some different things. They did send me an AI-generated image of something that they have just in mind for their actual sculpture, and of course we're going to incorporate those in. So here is the AI-generated image that the customer had sent me. Now, some benefits of this. One, the bird is not symmetrical or centered on the log or stump. Now, this is a stump that we're talking about formation. We did like how the stump had a lot of texture along the outside edges, but we had also spoke on the phone about how the general ecosystem for the Peregrine Falcon really doesn't include a lot of redwood. And that's what the AI generated image portrayed as the perched item. We don't want that. So we are going to lean towards more of a hickory, which is more of a gray colored bark on the exterior, which will also allow us to create larger root systems in the base. So what we'll do is we're going to have a general dirt formation on the ground. We're going to have large roots coming up into a stump that's kind of jagged and broken and decayed at the very top. Not so much decayed that you wouldn't imagine something landing there. Or if somebody wanted to purchase just the stump by itself later on down the road, they could use that as a display, like table or kind of like a display stand or something like that. Again, you're going to notice that the Peregrine Falcon is not centered. He's off to the right-hand side. His feet are also naturally positioned as if he had just landed. They're not symmetrical. One may be further a little bit back than the other. You'll also notice that in this image, his wings are pretty much tucked. He's just sitting there. His mouth is open. He's looking around. That's fine. We do want the mouth of the Peregrine Falcon to be open. This does also increase the overall difficulty of the sculpting or the casting process. The most important thing is that this thing represents the majesty of the bird that we're kind of sculpting in realism. So just to reiterate, guys, the customer wanted it on a stump-like base. We decided to go with a hickory color, which is a light gray, dinged out a little bit. We also want the feet to be off-center on the actual stump itself. And we also decided that we want the bird to be at a 45-degree angle with wings partially spread out as if the bird is going to take off. Now, when I get to the sculpting process of the wings, me and the customer will be talking one-on-one on how far out we would like for those wings to spread. So we'll be talking about that. That may be changing. So I don't want to lock in the overall decision on how far out those wings are going to be, but we definitely want to make sure that the wings are out there. We also want the tail plumage to be fanned out slightly so that way it gives the impression that the bird is squatting, perhaps ready to take off in a way. So we'll get to that as well. We want to make sure we're able to capture the plumage of the tail in the sculpting so that way the sculpture looks realistic. So here we are. So the customer wanted a stump base. We got hickory. We got the bird at 45 degrees. The feet are off center. We have the beak open. We have the plumage spread out. And those are the major things that the customer would like within the sculpture itself. Now, here are some of the things that I want to incorporate into the item. One, I want it to be castable. I want to make a mold of all the pieces, and I want them to be castable so that people can order this sculpture in the future with either probably a reduced price of the overall material cost, but of course they're going to be getting a higher rated item. The customer is not just going to be receiving a clay structure, they're going to receive a casted polymer item out of smooth cast. Now, I don't know if I'm going to do a hollow cast or maybe a solid cast. I don't know about that yet. I'll decide at the point of creation of the casting process. But we know that we're going to make molds. So whenever you're making molds of things this large, you just got to think about how you're going to mold it. Make sure there's no air pockets, things like that. So the most difficult thing throughout the whole process is going to be casting the legs. Because those legs are separated, we want to make sure that we're able to capture the realism of the legs being separated. If I have to create a small webbing between the two that can be taken away with a Dremel, then that's completely fine. I don't know how I'm going to do that quite yet, but regardless of what I do with that, it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. I also decided that I'm going to make the log or the stump part and the main bird separated. So we'll use a steel and aluminum tube sleeve system to make sure that these two items can fit perfectly together when they're shipped, but I'll be able to ship them in separate individual boxes inside the major box. That also allows me to create an overall better quality item, and the customer gets that wow feature when they get to put their item together inside their house. My goal, as I spoke with the customer, is that the item at afar will look absolutely realistic. You're coming down the stairs, you're coming in somebody's house, and you look and then, wow, in the corner is a Peregrine Falcon. Is that real? Is that real? It makes you take a second guess. As you get closer to the item, because it is a sculpted piece of work, you would see less like separation in the feathers. You'll see feathers clumped together and sculpted together. The face line, it doesn't have as many probably small micro details as the realistic bird would, but you're still going to see that amazing texture and painted elements on the item. I want you to know that it's a sculpture, but I also want you to be wowed by it when you open the package. And I told the customer, I said, that's my number one thing is when you open up the box, you have to have that wow factor, or I feel like I haven't done my job. Now, just to say, the customer had also requested that the stump be at least a foot tall. So that leaves us right there. The Peregrine Falcon stump has to be at least a foot tall. Okay, that's realistic. I like it. Now, they also asked me how big I would like and wide I'd like to make it. Okay, I can make it as wide as I want to, but depending on how wide it needs to be, you don't want it to be wider than it is tall, right? Depending on how big the stump is and where it broke or things like that. Let's go with, tell me when. You tell me when, guys. You tell me when. I think right there. Let's make this 16 inches in height, okay? Now, just because it's 16 inches in height does not mean that the overall sculpture is going to be 16 inches high. But spoiler alert, the bird itself is going to be 16 to 18 inches in length. From its beak, top of his head, to the tail feathers, it needs to be at least 16 inches. Now, I'm going to do my research and see if I want to make it a little bit longer or a little bit smaller depending on the circumstances. But it is a male, and I say male because the customer specifically requested a male plumage color. Okay? So we'll see how that goes. And then, of course, we'll be able to change the trajectory depending on how we want to do that. But as you can see, with that being there, the legs being there, you can see that the overall sculpture is going to be quite substantial. And we wanted to make sure that we get that strength in the item as well. Okay? Now, another thing the customer had mentioned is they also had mentioned that they would like for the bird to be... Now, of course, the customer had also mentioned that they want the actual sculpted log or stump base to be at least a foot tall. I don't think that we're going to do that. I'll probably go a few inches taller than that just so it has a little bit of like rich majesty to it. So we're going to go probably a few inches over that, which will also allow me to force the base out just slightly. And then that way we'll see how it goes. If I feel like it's proportionally too big to the bird itself, then we'll shrink it down a little bit. I'll take the time. I'll resculpt it. We'll do it. But we want to make sure that we're overall able to capture just a good proportion between the sculpted stump and the bird itself. You know what I'm saying? It has to be proportional. It has to look good when it's all said and done. It can't look fake. It can't look fake. We won't have it. We won't have fakeness. All right, so with that, we have the general idea of what the Peregrine Falcon sculpture could generally look like. Of course, we use those AI-generated images and my original collage images to kind of get a ballpark of what we were expecting. It's my idea along with the customer's idea, and not only just our collage of ideas to create the overall sculpture, but it also involves the customer in the creation process. It makes them feel more connected to the art piece when it's partially their ideas. And of course, yes, it's going to take absolutely forever, so many hours to create this, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. However, it's going to be very beneficial. It's going to be absolute amazing content, guys. Now, again, this is just the introduction to the overall Peregrine Falcon sculpture series. I'm super excited for you guys to join me in this journey, and this will be a playlist. I won't document every step of the way, but we are going to incorporate different foam work, woodworking. We're going to incorporate monster clay from Monster Maker Inc. to sculpt the log. We'll do the casting and the creation process of the stump. We will introduce steel tubing and aluminum rods for the feet and to the legs to incorporate them into the log. We will also pick that perfect angle of the bird, its perched wings as well as its plumage on the tail spread out. We're going to have that mouth open, which we need to make sure that we're able to capture that in the casting process. So we will be doing a molding, a casting of the bird body and legs. Very intricate, very tough. I'm not going to lie, it's going to be a challenge. I'm not going to lie, guys, it's going to be a challenge. but we're going to get it done, guys. So again, if you haven't liked and subscribed, make sure you do so, because if not, you're going to miss some amazing videos in this awesome series. Now, just be aware that this is not the first animal that I have created. I have also made a Goliath bird eater tarantula not too far back, and we have not made just one of those. We have made 3 different variations of that original diorama. There's a bronze, a silver, and a gold version of it, and of course, depending on which one you want, they do vary in overall price point. Let's be honest, price goes up, the bigger the item, and that's what it is. If you're looking for your own amazing art, make sure you reach out to me on Etsy. At least for now, I am still on there, and while I am open to commission pieces of artwork. Remember that commissioned artwork pieces do take substantially longer to create because of the creation time and the overall work involved, to make sure that it is absolutely perfect for you. I also have a bunch of sculptures and paintings and things like that already on there, already pre-made and ready to sell. But of course, just reach out to me and let me know. If I do open up my website, I will list that in the description of all of these videos, so you can reach out to me on there as well. Again, only serious inquiries for customized commissioned art. If you're not serious about buying something, please just pass it by and then just enjoy the content here on the YouTube channel. I'm actually going to start the playlist here in a few minutes for this project introduction. So if you've introduced you to the Peregrine Falcon via this playlist, I'm super excited for you guys. Make sure you do some more research on the bird itself. I'm going to give you some more quick tips along the way in this playlist. Let's go ahead and jump over there, guys, and we'll start this awesome creation playlist with some foam work